Bungie let go 220 of their roles. They are being eliminated. That's 17% of the studio's workforce. I saw a handful of people also left at the same time. I don't know if those are counted in the 220 folk that were let go, but some of those people were very long time Bungie employees, like Luke Smith, who was kind of a figurehead in a lot of ways for that game. He had been there. Did he go from 1UP to Bungie?
He was journalist and joined at the end of Destiny 1, I think, and then took the reins of Destiny 2.
Jeez. Yeah, he had been there for a super long time and kind of rose through the ranks. I forgot what his latest title was, but it was one of the top dogs of Destiny.
He was creative director until he moved to another project.
Yeah. So, Rami, how do you take the news, especially with the final shape having just come out, the big finale to the 10-year journey that is Destiny 2, and now this is the second firing?
I mean, it's fucked. It's fucked. The whole thing is fucked. The whole thing, the whole industry is fucked. Honestly, like it's a mess. And it's it's one of the first time we've seen. Like, you have to respect that at least. Like, it's the first time we've seen somebody just sort of like openly say, yeah, we over-indexed on the growth after COVID. We hired too much. We got too ambitious, and we spent too much money. And like, who would have seen that one coming? But the thing that really, the thing that really is sort of like remarkable about this one, I think that really speaks to the times, is the discussion that happened on Twitter afterwards, contrasting the layoff of 220 people with the amount of cars that the CEO has bought this last year.
Yeah.
A $2.2 million worth of cars.
Yeah.
And that, that's just really the industry right now. Like, it's brutal. It doesn't matter whether you make a good game, a bad game, whether you make a well-received game or a poorly received game, whether it performs well or it doesn't perform well. Like, ultimately, a few people making decisions fuck it up, and sometimes that's the CEO and sometimes it's the shareholders, but either way.
So I'm actually interested if you have any information on that, because I saw the claims of that. I saw that he spent $2.4 million on cars over the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. But where did the money come from? We don't have any indication of how much money he makes at the studio, and the only numbers I could find coming around was $600,000 a year, which more looks like to me you're dealing with a massive thing like this, firing a bunch of people, dudes doing midlife crisis, buy a shitload of cars, right? Like, and I've seen that happen and play out before, and it's shit. But I don't necessarily like the narrative that CEO is draining all the money, so we had to fire all these people. When you that's the one that I saw on Twitter. That was the take, right?
They're not related statements, but it does show that right now 220 people are being let go, while CEOs are still getting massive amounts of money for effectively doing a really shit job.
Yeah,
like if I was programming,
I would say
Bungie,
he's doing a shit job
poorly,
for sure.
Yeah. If I programmed as poorly as he ran the company, self-admittedly, because this, it's in his own path for Bungie post. You read what he writes: over-indexed, grew too hard, too ambitious, too many projects, spread the studio too thin, too many things going on. Like, that's all leadership.
Him. Yep,
that's all him, right? Like, responsibility travels up. That's how it should work.
Yeah, 100%. The problem that I run into is when people say, like, oh, this amount of money was spent. It's like, where do you get the money? Was that investments? Right. Was that stuff that came to fruition? We don't have any information on that. When I look at 220 jobs, especially when they're located in, Bungie's out of Bellevue. Here, they're out of Bellevue, which is real. I live up in Washington too. That's an expensive area. That's really goddamn expensive. Yeah. And when you got 220 jobs there, let's say lowball it at $70K per job, and that's lowball for that.
That's very
You're
low.
Talking, that's super low. Even with lowball that hard, you're at $15.4 million a year in base pay before bonuses, before anything else that goes along with that. So, like, dude,
that's still a seventh of the jobs, right? Like, the 2.2 million is still 1/7 of the jobs.
Yeah. If it was drained out of the pay, right?
Right.
That's
it was probably
that's the only problem that I have with it. I don't like going along with like social media angst on shit unless we know where that came from. And I'd like to know the dude's pay.
I think it's not really where it came from. The thing that people are upset about, right? The thing that people are angry about is that this dude could buy $2.2 million in cars.
Sure.
While the other people are out of a job, right?
That's the anger.
That's the anger, and that's what
Like
Yeah.
I've been through so many different layoffs and shit. Like I was there when we did the first Blizzard 600. Like I've been through the process. I've seen the awful.
Mhm.
I've been through it. So when I see this type of stuff, I don't really care about the optics on these types of things. I go, well, what's the actual stats? Where did the money go? Were they actually mismanaging it? Were they giving it to the CEO? Clearly, the CEO is going to be in trouble with this because he's mismanaging the business where he's pushing them in bad initiatives.
Yeah.
But like doing it in the money direction just seems like, I don't know. It just seems like an easy mad without actually having any substance, if that makes sense.
No, I think I mean I hear you. At the same time, the optics do matter.
Yeah, the
with this
optics-
Oh yeah,
case,
the optics
right?
are awful.
Are rough
They're horrible
on the-
optics for sure. Yeah.
Especially right now where it's like, again, 220 people, and it's 220 out of a job because they're also relocating 170 jobs. That makes for 450 people out of Bungie. That was
Yes.
like what, 30% of Bungie?
The
Something
reason
like that?
why I
don't know
bring
what the
this up
exact
though,
number-
the most common narrative that I see is CEO should have taken pay cut to save those jobs.
Oh,
I don't think he's making $15 million a year, dude. That business couldn't absorb
CEO,
that. Yeah.
CEO shouldn't be CEOing the way he's CEOing.
Yeah.
That's the issue, right? Like
That's the issue. And
it's
that's why I'm like, the money is kind of irrelevant here. That's a weird direction to go because then people are like, he should take a pay cut. It's like, you don't even know what he makes. This doesn't make sense. That's a huge cost already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I received that information on the totem pole of that he was bragging to employees 2 days before firing them about these cars.
Yeah, that's not great.
That's
Yeah.
where all of
I mean-
this like vitriol from
If
social
He was
media
doing
came
that.
from.
That's a
I-
dick
Yeah.
move.
I don't even think is that like that is a problem, right? And the developer that told that story also pointed out like it wasn't a malicious thing, it wasn't a bragging thing per se. That
Okay.
story did get away from the original
As it
version
does.
of the story.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the money thing is just like I think a lot of people are just entirely done with the discrepancy between what somebody who's doing the
Sure.
work earns versus somebody who leads the company earns, right? And like that's the thing that's creating right now. And I think we're seeing that throughout the industry. Leadership has been failing industry wide, right? Every major company
agree.
is dealing with like either over indexing, over ambitious, projecting growth past COVID at COVID levels. Like it's nonsense. And then on top of that, and this is sort of going into economics, like the zero interest rate is like gone, like ZERP's gone. So getting money, getting investment is horrifying right now. And as Thor was pointing out, those people that's millions of dollars, many millions of
Oh, yeah.
dollars a year, right? Like just to have a team.
Yeah.
So the
just-
industry is in a weird spot.
Yeah. Just for the people that we were talking about, the 220, low ball of 70,000, which is unlikely to be that low, would be 15.4 million. Then you're talking benefits, you're talking training, you're talking facilities, you're talking materials. You're looking at 20 to $30 million for all those employees on a per year basis. Like that's a lot of money. That's not a small amount. So like these types of numbers they're that level of astronomical where it's hard to even understand how much money that really is. It becomes worthless amounts of numbers, which is wild, So like when these types of layoffs happen, I understand why businesses do this, and it feels awful every time. There's no good ending when these types of situations happen, but that happens, right? And what I try to focus on more than anything else is support the people when they lose that, because the biggest issue that I see that comes out of that is people go, I'm worthless, instead of the business can't afford me. And it should be that second one.
Yeah. And it's that, but also survivorship bias, right? Like I have a lot of friends in Bungie, but like a lot of folks that didn't get laid off, their motivation, their feelings, like everything is destroyed because
Into the
their
floor.
team is gone, right? And they're the only one left, and they don't know why they're left. They don't know whether it's because they're good at stuff, or because they were cheap, or because they didn't push
underpaid,
back.
yeah.
Like everybody else is gone, they feel super guilty because that's their friends, right? All out of a job, all potentially relocating because it's the games industry. So your next job might be in Texas, your next job might be on the other side of the country, it might be in Canada, right? If there is a next job, because right now there's very little jobs, so the whole thing is a fucking mess. Like clearly mismanagement again. And that's it's devastating. The whole thing is devastating.
No,
Yeah,
there's actually
waiting
a
to see
question
how-
I had. Speaking of mismanagement and stuff, I want to know, like, what is the path to, like, CEO, manager, whatever, like the higher up thing? Like, do they not deserve it when they're up there? Like, like, do most people not work their way up to get to CEO or something like that?
I mean, they do. I mean, for Pete, he was at Bungie back in early 2000s, I think. He was like, he was a producer, I think, and he went from producer. He became a studio manager. He worked on Halo. I don't know if he worked on the first one, but I know for sure he worked on the second and third one. And then I think he went to Microsoft, stayed there, and then when Bungie left from there, I think he joined in.
Yeah, he joined in 2008 as the COO.
Yeah. So usually there's somebody who works on the production side very often. If it's a larger studio, at least they come from the production side and sort of like move up, because production side is sort of more the business side of the games industry, right? So if you would really just like take the shortest cut version, you have like your creative team, which is the creative director, sort of sits at the top. And then under them, you have your studio leads, which might be your art lead, your programming lead, your engineering lead, your narrative lead, whatever. And then you have the production side, which is sort of the part that we don't really talk about in public all that much, because they're the people who do like color-coded spreadsheets. They really love Notion. They used to like Trello, and then they kind of didn't like Trello anymore. They complain about Jira. If you've never heard Jira, like
I was just gonna say Jira, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Such a mess.
Very specifically, they're on the like, if you really want to do a shortcut, the creative side is like, should we make this game? And the other side is, can we make this game? Right? And so the people from that side sort of like rise up through doing the business and the economics and the hiring and all that stuff. They touch all those parts, and then they kind of make their way up. But when you get to CEO, I think one of the hardest things, and this is tough for a lot of people, even good people, is just leadership is hard. Like, running something is hard. There's nobody to tell you whether you're doing right or wrong. The people around you are people that might have come from lots of money or might have lots of money, might look at money in a very different way, which is good. Again, like, investors need to look at money in a different way than you and I do, right? Like, that's just how that works. But sometimes they kind of lose touch with what they're doing, and that's where things get really, really spooky. And
it's one of the things that I really liked about Blizzard, actually, back in the day, was when Mike Morhaime was CEO, he had a policy called Email Mike. And he would also do a thing where he'd do QA for a day or CS for a day or things like that, specifically to fix that problem that you're talking about, which is he would go down and be like, I'm going to be a customer service representative today. I don't want you to fix anything for me. I don't want anything to get like changed at all. And he would go and do the job, and he's like, these pieces are shit. And then they would get fixed instantly. And they could be things that people in the department have been complaining about for months and months that just never made it up the chain and never got fixed. And he got to go down there and fix it for those people instantly. Being in touch with the rest of your company when you're in a position of leadership means you have to go in the trenches to do so. Yeah. And if you don't do that, you're going to fall out of touch. There's no way around it. The business moves too damn fast. And Email Mike let us email him anytime if chain of command failed, which it did.
Yeah.
And being able to do that at any time was huge.
Mike was also kind of crazy. I remember emailing him as a community member in like 2010. It was around when Overwatch was starting. And I was a whiny community member. It was like, hey, you should really look into your community, and that should be, the people that are getting first look at Overwatch, blah, 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 blah. Just a whiny email. I know Mike personally, but it was still a whiny email. The next day I'm at BlizzCon, and I'm meeting with the senior VP of like global PR or some shit about how they can work on this program. And I'm just like, why the fuck am I talking to you? Like, you don't care what I have to say at all. Like, well, Mike wanted me to speak with you about this, so I'm speaking. And it was like at lunch in the hotel lobby at the Hilton. And I was like, this is crazy, like absolutely insane.
It's one of the reasons I like DJ Clancy here on Twitch as well, because when he first started, it was like, you're out of touch. And he's like, am I wrong? Is it the children who are wrong? And he was like, no, I'm actually out of touch. And he was like, I'm going to go stream. And he didn't stream like a CEO. He didn't stream like, oh, everyone white glove now. Go fix my stream for me. He streamed on Starlink, and it looked like shit. Like,
sure.
It was horrible to watch, dude. It was awful. And he didn't know how to handle hecklers. He didn't know how to ban people. He didn't know how to do anything. And now he streams all the time. He does it all himself. He applied for partnership and failed the first time, which was hilarious to watch.
Amazing.
And like, by dog fooding like that, by going down and actually using the platform's getting objectively better. The only way that I think that upper management actually succeeds is by cutting through the red tape and actually getting down and using the products and services that they're selling as a company and engaging in the jobs that they're giving to other people. It's the best way to do it, man.
I think is that the only thing. So I train a lot of producers nowadays, and a lot of people in sort of like leadership roles, especially for indies that are growing. Right, a lot of studios are going from 4 people to like 12, 20, 25, 60. That's a really tough change. You've changed from like being a bunch of creative people in a room that know each other to having a team and having responsibilities. And the one thing about the red tape is there's a reason there's red tape, right? Like there's a reason we build structures. It's because they're dependable. We understand how they work. The thing that backfires on people is then when you go fix stuff at the bottom and you don't fix the actual red tape, right? You need to fix the process. That's where things. So very often when CEOs or leadership people, they go in, they do the job for a day, like, this is awful, let's fix this specific thing. But they don't go look at like, why didn't that thing make it up the chain far enough to get fixed without me, right? And so now the company remains dependent on the CEO going down and actually doing the work for a day before shit gets fixed, which is super demoralizing for everybody. It's like, okay, I guess this is a problem. We might as well shut the fuck up about it until the dude comes down again. Like until God comes down to earth, we shall suffer, and it'll be, you know. So it's one of those things. Like leadership is hard everywhere, but like this is just mismanagement. This is like the one job a CEO should do is like they should hold that 5 to 10 year vision, right? And like move the company in a direction. And unless the direction here was like go bankrupt, I don't know why the fuck they were moving in that direction. Like Bungie was stable, it was doing well. Yeah, sure, there's rumors that they were selling less and less, but that shouldn't lead to like 220 people getting laid off out of nowhere. That should have led to some strategic changes in that. Not like booting up 4 other projects. 4.
Yeah.
With the salary raise that Thor is talking about. Like, listen, if you set up a team like that in a place where the economy allows you to set up a team like that, like quickly at like a nice rate, but in Bellevue?
No, dude, it's not. You can't do it. That's the most expensive part of Washington. Like, I don't live in Bellevue. That's insane. It's so expensive. They're just throwing money away. Wild.
So with all that, Rami, you look at Destiny now, and like, what do you?
I cry.
Well, where does what is the future of that game? Right, like they've kind of soft announced some of the small things that they're doing, and you know,
listen,
are people bailing?
The final
is this the time to get out?
But Destiny has been dying since 2014. Like every week, people tell me that it's dying.
Right.
It is and it isn't. Right. Like every game dies eventually. It will. Like there will be a date where there's just not enough Destiny or not enough players to keep Destiny going. I don't think we're anywhere close. What I will say is they can't keep making the game that they've been making right now. Like this, what they're doing is unsustainable. They need a different direction. I don't like the direction that's being discussed right now because it sounds a lot more like grindy.
Yeah.
But I get it. Like I get something needs to happen, and I am very upset at the people that made it so that this needs to happen. And that's, goes down to at the moment one person. But you think about the timelines on this stuff. Like most of the stuff that's coming out over the next like at least 3 to 9 months is already in production, is already underway, is going to get triaged. They're going to make some adjustment, but it's overwhelmingly going to come out the way they expect it to. So we'll start feeling it in a year, just like last year when I told you the industry was going to go to shit.
Yeah, sure.
It takes a year.
Ships take a while to turn. Yeah.
Yeah. So they also take a time to sink in the games industry. It goes real fast, but like
when it happens, it's fast. But yeah.
Up until that point, they'll keep making Destiny, and I know the teams there, they care, like they really want this to continue, and that's why the industry is such a shit show. Is we all care so fucking much. We care so much. We just want to ship good games, y'all. Like that's it.